one of the reasons we started these podcasts was circumstances just like that, because this is a complicated situation, way more complicated than you would get even reading most newspapers, because a lot of big newspapers and a lot of big TV networks have said Middle East peace or Middle East peace plan. So, and it's like, wait a minute, is that what's really happening here? So that's my question, Steve. Is that's what really happening here?
No, I mean, it's obvious that that's the way the president wants to sell it. He's talked about it that way. But my sense is that, and I'm very interested in what Alon has to say on this, but my sense is that we're going to see hostages come home and in exchange for, Palestinians, and then thereafter the other 19 or 18 points in this plan will not be implemented at all. And the president will lose interest, and Tony Blair will be left holding the bag of a mess of a plan that in, kind of principle you could sort of get behind here, stabilization, reconstruction, but that there's no details and will be litigated to death by both Hamas as well as the Israeli government.
Well, that's pessimistic, but I bet Alon can get more pessimistic. I'm just
No, 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 not necessarily. I mean, first of all, I agree with everything Stephen said, except for one thing. If it gets as bad as you and I think, or maybe even the three of us, I doubt that Tony Blair would immerse himself in this.
Fair enough.
Given the circumstances, because there are so many questions about those next phases that begin, by the way, an hour after the hostage release and prisoner exchange take place. Supposedly, Hamas is supposed to disarm. Says who? And let's assume that they are willing to disarm. Do all of them disarm? Who do they give their weapons to? Who's there to collect the weapons? I mean, these are very on-the-ground practical issues that the Trump plan has no answer for. Now, let me say something, 40,000 feet, and then I want to hear you two guys. There are two ways of looking at this plan. The first is, this is the only plan in town. Let's not relitigate the fact that it could have been that it was on the table for the better part of the last 18 months. In fact, it is not that different from the Biden plan of December 2023 that Kamala Harris presented in Dubai in February 2024. But let's not really relitigate that. Here's the plan, and according to the approach number one, it has deficiencies, it has ambiguities, it has points that are intractable, amenable to all kinds of interpretations. But guys, this is it. There is nothing else. In fact, if I were Trump, if he had any respect for international institutions and multilateralism, I would go with this plan to the Security Council and ask them to make this a binding resolution, which he won't because he has issues with the UN. Okay. The second approach is what Middle East scholars and Middle East diplomats have done for years, and that is dissect this, kill it by going point by point, which is exactly what we're doing, and saying, okay, this will never work. Now, the second approach is very pessimistic, but it also corresponds to reality much more than the first, because the first assumes the one saying that this is the only plan, let's endorse it, let's hug it, let's move forward. It assumes goodwill, which is an ingredient that does not exist. It assumes trust, which does not exist. And it assumes actual support from the surrounding envelope or surrounding circle. That doesn't exist outside of the rhetoric. And just like you said, even Trump is going to lose interest. Here's the thing. He wants the Nobel Prize. So tomorrow is the day, right? If they announce that he gets a Nobel Prize, he'll be the happiest man in the world and then lose interest because there's no second Nobel Prize waiting. If he doesn't get the Nobel Prize, he will be sulking, angry, and his usual tantrums will kick in, and then he won't be interested at all. Why would I bother? And so any way you look at it, I don't see a bright future for this plan.
Okay, I want to break it down into parts here.
Go.
But first, let me just pause, wave my hand at Joe Vitale. Joe, Alon sounded a little muted to me there for part of that. Are you getting that, or does he sound okay to you? Okay. Okay. That's fine. Alon, do you have a microphone, or is it just on
No,
your
it's working fine. It worked all day on all these including your friends at MSNBC.
Okay, well, that's fine. It just was it was I could hear you. It was just in and out. Although now, yeah, just that's fine.
No, no, no. Okay.
Just lean in a little bit. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right.
all right, all right. Fine. Sorry. So we'll stop and I'll go to my question. So, well, let's pick up on that, and I certainly want to leave enough time to talk about phase two because phase two is most of the plan, right? Phase one is like 5% of the plan, and phase two is most of the hard parts. But getting here wasn't easy, and I think we need to be fair. If 20 living hostages come home, that's a step, and those families will be happy. If the bodies of the other hostages are returned, that will at least address a need of those families. If there is any kind of ceasefire, if there's more humanitarian aid that makes it into Gaza, these are all positive things. And frankly, people have been trying to get to them for a while. Poll the people who were involved. They said Trump really put some pressure on Netanyahu. To that extent, Witkoff, Jared Kushner, et al. Deserve some credit, don't they, Steve?
Oh, I think without a doubt they deserve credit here. I think the president, there is some value at this moment to have a president who's transactional. And I think this came together at first with Israel's or Netanyahu's order to strike Hamas in Doha, which was ill-conceived and failed. But it put Netanyahu on the defensive with the president, who was proclaimed publicly that he was unhappy about it. Israel's Arab partners were really, really unhappy about it. And so it softened up Netanyahu for Trump. At the same time, the Qataris, who were scared by this, were demanding not just an apology from Netanyahu, but a guarantee from the United States. So here is this very transactional president who says, now I have something to work with. I can I can give the Qataris an executive order that says, I will protect you, in exchange for them putting the screws to Hamas. And there was already some sentiment within the Qatari system that says, what do we need this for? Hamas it's like herding cats. We can't deal with the Israelis. Why should we even do this? And so it focused their attention on putting a lot of pressure on them. Meanwhile, Netanyahu was under a lot of pressure. And Trump, I think, skillfully put himself on the side of 65, 70% of the Israeli public that wants the war to come to an end and bring all the hostages home. And Netanyahu couldn't possibly defy both. He can defy the Israeli public, but he couldn't defy Trump, especially since he was on the defensive with both Trump as well as those Arab leaders. So the president, actually being transactional, started to extract things from everybody. Then you get Jared Kushner coming in, who stitches together all of these different plans. As Alon points out, this was a plan that was essentially the Biden plan in 2023, plus a few other things, Tony Blair. And the Arab states and Turkey are very, very interested in this happening and playing ball because they want stuff. Turkey wants F-35s, it wants a variety of things, so they're willing to put pressure on Hamas. And the Jordanians, the Saudis, all this, they have political problems as a result of what's been happening in Gaza. They would have been totally fine had the Israelis pursued a 3-month devastating response to October 7th. But the fact that it's gone on for 2 years, tens of thousands of Palestinians being killed, they need something from this because they're under a lot of political pressure at home. So the president stitched this together. Now, it's an accomplishment to bring the hostages home. If I were him, I'd sort of stop because the rest of this, as we've been talking about, is going to be subject to endless negotiation.
Well, I want to come back to that in a second because honestly, I think, you say transactional, I say he takes it all personally, but it's the same thing, right?
Okay.
But in terms of the hostages, I think Trump is a little over focused on the hostages. He sort of has seen that as the extent of this. And when you get into issues like Palestinian sovereignty or self-determination and so forth, he's not as engaged
No,
in those
not at
issues
all.
in
You're
a way
absolutely
that
right.
will actually lead to a result. Now, Alon, we love you here and love it when you come to visit us in the United States. So I want to give you a piece of advice. If you write a column that says, the Biden plan triumphs in the Middle East, they're going to deny you entry.
I know.
Okay, I just want you to be clear that you'll not be allowed back in this country.